We are live.
Great. Well, let's call to order this meeting of the Bond Oversight Committee for July 23rd. It's Thursday, right? 2026. I'm Julie Hoy, the mayor.
Linda Nishioka.
Mickey Barney.
Bob Courtright. Hi, Karen.
All right. Awesome. That's the welcome and the call to order. If I had a pen, I'd cross it off. Thank you.
There we go.
We need a motion for approval of the May 2026 meeting minutes.
It feels like such an eternity. I so move.
Second. Go ahead.
Motion and second by Portland. Anyone signed up for public comment?
No, ma'am.
No, thank you. Moving on to neighborly development.
Yes, we need to vote. Sorry.
Oh, meeting minutes. Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Neighborly development.
Michael Brown, Community Planning and Development. I'm here to be this staff base, I guess, for the application. As councilors know, and as the members probably know, council approved the bond scoring criteria last month, and therefore it's now in effect. The Casa Loma project, which Ms. Hayes from Community Resource is here representing the property owner. The developer could not attend, they had some conflicts. But the application originally from 2 years ago asked for $3 million, which the committee and council approved. There's been cost increases, and I think there's been some supplemental questions that were posed that have been answered as best as possible. And so now the question for the committee is it willing to consider adding money to this project? There were two specific things in the criteria that brought them, would bring them up to meeting the minimum score. One, which they've requested, which is a waiver to consider the phase 2 of their production to get them above 200 units, which would add points. And then the second piece is they've agreed to triple the amount of type A accessible units so that to meet the housing production strategies identified need for that particular component of type of housing. So if those two things, if the committee sees fit to grant the waiver, and they've already agreed to the triple the amount of the type A units, that will get them to the minimum of the new bond scoring criteria. And then it would be up to the committee and eventually council to decide whether it's an appropriate use of the funds.
Thank you.
I just want to also add that we do have land use approval for the second phase for the city.
Anybody have questions?
I'm curious if you can talk about what that process is for approving this request. I know we have the new criteria,
right.
But as an amendment to the existing project, is this one that goes to council? Is that right?
It'll have to go to council eventually, yes. So for the bond committee, and Josh, you can flag me if I'm misspeaking here, but for the bond committee, you would be recommending the waiver to include phase 2, and then you would be making an overall recommendation about the amount of funding.
Thank you. Can you help us understand phase 2 sort of anticipated dates? So how much time lapse there might be? I mean, I'm trying to understand the waiver as far as timeline.
Certainly. So the phase 2 would also be low income housing tax credit project, which would require us to go through the process with Oregon Housing and Community Services. So the probably would be able to start in on the financing and the funding package for that after the next legislative session, once the legislature allocates more funding for the LIFT program, which we would use as gap funding integrated in with the LIHTC.
Continue. Can you give us an idea what you hope to expect from the state as far as additional funding? Just trying to pull all the pieces together.
I honestly can't speak to the second phase because we haven't done the financial modeling yet. We haven't finalized that yet. But because the land acquisition costs and the offsites, which these funds are going to pay for, will be absorbed. And so it should pencil out pretty well. But as far as the amount for the second phase for lift, I'm not sure. We have secured 33 million for the first phase from the state and lift funding.
So how many, do you anticipate how many others might be competing for the funds that you'd be looking for? I know that that's always, you know, like everybody's competing for those funds.
Right. I'm not sure, but how OHCS has things set up is to make it equitable across the state, is they have different set asides for different types of communities. And so this project particularly is in the urban metro region.
Yeah.
And so there'll be different pots set aside for different communities in those categories. So that's meant to cut down on the competition and really spread those funds equitably throughout the state.
Can you, when you say that you're going to triple the accessible units, can you put a number to that?
The requirement is 2% when you have X number of units. So their original development would require 2%, which is 4. And so they're going to provide 12 for the in phase one.
So that they have the ramp, so it has everything that would accommodate somebody that was in wheelchairs or other accessible needs.
It's called a type A unit. And so it's specifically designed for folks with mobility issues, and whereas type B units have a more generalized, like any of us who are able-bodied would be perfectly comfortable in type B unit, whereas with the type A unit, you would find it odd with a low counter and those kinds of things.
Yes. So 20.
That would be 12.
12, thank you.
So they're required to do 2%
Okay.
by building code. And so with the number of units there, that would be at 4, so they're agreed to go to 12.
Thank you. I think that for right now, that's all. Mike?
First one, I think I have the answer. So whether we approve or don't approve today has no impact on the 3 million that's already been committed, correct? So that's already correct. Yes, okay. Similar to Councilor Nishioka's question about competition, I think she asked in the context of some of the state funding. If we agree to an additional 1.4, now we're committing almost half of the 10 million that we have for the city of Salem.
Yes.
Projects. What other projects are we looking at or anticipating that would be competing specifically for this time?
I don't think Ms. Hayes could probably answer that one, and I can tell you what I know, which is relatively limited. So OHCS has what they call ORCA. That was a delivered acronym, and I don't really remember what it stands for, but nonetheless, essentially what they've done is instead of issuing individual NOFAs or notice of funding availability for things like LIFT funds or GAP funds or veterans funds, is they just kind of pool the whole thing and everybody applies, and low income housing tax credits, and everybody just applies and they distribute as they can. Right now, Salem has some projects that are in the ORCA pipeline, and some of them have already been approved, like Salem Housing Authority's got approval on Southview Terrace and Inglewood West rehabilitation. This one, their phase 1 has been approved. There's another one for in pipeline that hasn't been approved for Block 45 under Salem for Refugees. And so that's the extent of Salem specific applications that are in ORCA's pipeline at the moment. The pipeline the process is designed to be open-ended. It's a rolling thing. So essentially, if someone comes up with an idea that they want to go to OHCS for funding, they can apply at any time. The applicant then has to go through a qualifying process with to demonstrate that their pro forma, meets all the standards, and the OHCS has templates for all of those things. So it's certainly possible in the next legislative session that there will be additional applications come in, and we don't know where all those are going to come from. I do know that there was a developer who did what's it called, Gateway, who asked if we had any federal funds, because we also supervise that, and that tells me that they're at least got something that is an idea that they might seek funding for from OHCS, but nothing concrete. So unfortunately, I can't tell you every single affordable project in the pipeline or that someone has in the idea line right now. I can tell you what's in the pipeline right now.
If I could just add just a little bit, there was never, with the $10 million budget, there was never a contemplation of if it should go all to one project or 10 projects, or, that was never a consideration. So it's really just a bucket of funding, and it's really a policy choice recommendation from this committee, how you want to divvy it up, if there should be consideration if there were multiple developers versus awarding it to one project. So you're absolutely right. If this was approved, there would be about $5 million-ish left to award. It's a little hard to know because we just adopted the criteria earlier this month. So now it's out. We might be considering it. So I would expect more applications in the future, but we don't know, and it does take quite a while to develop these level projects.
It does. Yeah, sometimes 2 or 3 years to get your funding together.
I'm thinking the time frame for our bond measure in spending this $10 million is what, another 6 years? Is that right?
So when we issued the bonds, I issued them as taxable bonds. So there's no requirement for spending limit, so we can hang on to them as needed. I think to fulfill kind of the idea behind the bond, we want to look at spending them by 33. That still is quite a few years.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the amount of resources we have left compared to the time we have left and other opportunities beyond those that we know are coming.
Well, on that same line, I was thinking the same thing. I was also thinking, boy, it's nice to spend more of it now. In an inflationary cycle, it's probably better to front load some of this stuff. And was just curious if we were aware of any projects that are far enough along in the planning stages that we could reasonably anticipate that they may be applying for some of these funds. That's really sort of the thrust of the question, and we don't know, right?
Yeah.
Not concrete.
Not concretely.
Yeah, and to add to that, I would say that the funds are being asked for something that you have permits, but it's not, it's kind of like, well, maybe, I guess I'm just wondering if maybe we should wait and have you come, those are the things, but at the same time, I'm recognizing what you're saying is it's time-wise, it may be a smart choice.
Yeah, and I can explain to you kind of where we are in the process. We've been working on this project for a little over 2 years now. The process that Michael described with the ORCA, with OECS, we've gone through several phases of that application process, and we are now on the financial commitment phase, working for the financial close. Sooner is better. Also, you mentioned like the market and everything, and one thing that has happened is that the tax credits on the dollar have gone down. We had previously underwritten it with 85 cents on the dollar. That's how much equity that we will get from our tax credit investor. That's what it's based on. It's now at 75 cents. So we're working to fill the gap. The project will go without this additional funding. However, we will have a really steep just that difference in the principal amount of our permanent financing will have a really long-term impact on the operating budget. So instead of putting our money towards services and improving the property, we'll be paying interest to a financial institution. And so just this amount, out of the 65 million, an additional 1.4 would make just a huge difference on how we can serve our residents, the property. We do have a current property, the Cornerstone Apartments, similar size. It's been hugely successful with a full-time community health worker on site. That provides services, plans events, brings partners in. It's very robust. If anyone wants to come visit, I'd be happy to show you. Mayor Floyd's been there.
And where is that located?
It's off of Portland Road behind the Don Foreman Creamery.
And you would have a similar model.
With modeled after this, yes. Right?
Does commitment of these additional funds open up additional opportunities through the other federal and state programs? For additional funding?
In other words, for matching.
Yeah,
or
for
getting
matching,
points,
for-
that the
It's already
Orca,
coming down.
yeah, the Orca process
Okay.
basically has kind of gone away from that. That used to be a technique.
Yeah.
You know, you get $100,000 from the city first and then go and say, I got points. They don't do that anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, and we would have gone back to the state. Well, we kind of poked a little bit, but we knew that all of the lift funding for this last biennium is already spoken for. So although we were below the subsidy limits with the state, our lift funding, they just don't have the funds to add to our project.
Did you have something else?
I'm curious to hear more about the reason for the $1.4 million cost increase. If I read the material correctly, it wasn't that the city was imposing new requirements that you didn't know about. It's just that for some reason, the engineer, West Tech, correct, said now is estimating that it's going to cost more than you originally estimated. Is that right?
Yes, so we've gotten into the more detailed drawings and plans and everything, and also just costs have gone up. It's been 2 years, so.
So I'm curious if your project budget, this is what, $60 million altogether?
65.
Is, what did you assume about inflation? I mean, that's something that we look at ordinary projects when we're doing budgeting and project contingency. Those seem to me to be places that you would otherwise be catching the difference between your initial estimates and what turns out.
Yeah, so we did not anticipate the delay. First off, Michael mentioned the Orca. It's a brand new application process. I don't want to go through the whole saga, but our project, our application, because it was such a new process, it was kicked back when it shouldn't have been. And as we were working with OHCS executive leadership, working through that, the funds were allocated to other projects. Then we had to wait for the biennium to end. We were told we'd be grandfathered in with no low-income housing tax credits, just lift funding and a little bit of gap funding and city funding. And then the OHCS actually changed the rules, and we had to shift to LIHTC, which required finding an investor, a lender, a guarantor, and made the project much more complicated. And so we didn't foresee the 2-year delay. We anticipated to be breaking ground pretty soon after the 3 million, the original 3 million was approved by City Council. But now we're so far into the OHCS application process, those types of variables are rather controlled. I don't know if that helps.
Could you say a little bit more about what your project contingency is, and is that a possible source to cover this kind of cost increase? I mean, I assume that's what you would ordinarily do if there weren't some other source of funding.
Yeah, so we were really conservative with with the budget and everything, and so we've been able to, um, adjust things. Unfortunately, the services took a hit and things like that. And we do have some contingencies that are required by OHCS and their pro forma requirements that are built in. So really it's, like I said, we could still do the project. It's just that the operating budget would be severely affected by the increase in the permanent loan. I don't know if I answered your question.
A little bit. Let me, if I can prevail with one more, is so we're a small part of the funding package for this. What have you done to reach out or talk to your other funding providers about ways that they might cover these increased costs due to the delay?
Well, we looked at other investors that might be able to offer a higher price on the dollar for the tax credits. They're able, all of their tax credits have been earmarked for this year. It's really a matter of timing. So, we're in this process. We have deadlines with OHCS that we have to meet to close on the financing at a certain time. And and as I mentioned, the LIFT funding is not available. There won't be any available until after the next legislative session. And so, the funding sources really are, OHC, the funding package. You've got the LIHTC model, which is a tax credit investment, which is lower than, so our tax credit investor had provided an LOI at 85 cents on the dollar, and 2 weeks later, we got another one from them at 75 cents. So the tax credit investment, we have a construction loan that converts into PERM, private activity bonds. And then we have the city's money, and then we have the LIFT funding. And those have been the primary sources that we've been looking into. We've talked to other donors in the community to see if they might want to invest. And they're more interested in programmatic type investments rather than brick and mortar. So we have been exploring other options, but the brick and mortar grants and donations are few and far between. Most donors and most foundations prefer not to contribute for capital construction.
Can I ask a question when you can forgive me for my statements? Neighborly development, is that an offshoot with Neighborly Ventures, Mountain West? Can you give me a structural context of how neighborly development is overlaid?
I can do my best. I don't work for them. Community Resource Trust is an independent 501c3 charitable organization.
Okay, thank you.
And so, our mission is to build affordable housing. And we are contracted with Neighborly Development as the developer to build the project. Once the project is built, Neighborly steps away, and Community Resource Trust is in charge of the day-to-day operations. So this is a general manager, the tax credit investor in a limited partnership. So Neighborly Ventures has different subsidiaries under it, and I know they have Neighborly Development is one of them. Neighborly Communities is a property management company, and Neighborly Construction, which is not the GC for this project. They don't do as large projects. They do smaller projects. And Neighborly Asset Management.
So I would just offer that, that I may have a potential conflict, but a potential I am able to still. So,
okay, thank you. I did want to mention, you mentioned Mountain West, Waverly is independent. of Mountain West.
Okay, great. Thank you. Still,
Counselor Barney, did you have questions?
I'm scribbling down notes here. Boy, I appreciate the questions from all my colleagues. I'm having crossing things off my list here. I really appreciate it. Just to refresh my memory here, is there a set length of time the units are required to be affordable at or below 60%?
Yes. Let's see, we have several different funding sources that have different, I'm thinking what the longest one is. I think it's 40 years is lived. It's either 30 or 40. Is it 40?
Okay, I'm just kind of curious comparatively. How, or I guess does the recently passed federal housing bill impact the availability of funds for this budget currently and in the future for phase 2? Is there any impact?
On the funding, no, we don't have any federal funding sources. LIHTC is a federal program, but it's a tax credit program, so it's not an actual source. It incentivizes investors to invest in these types of projects, but the actual funding does not come from the federal government.
Okay, but it incentivizes. Okay.
It's a tax credit program.
Okay. Since the city council just recently adopted the scoring mechanism, how did that change from when we were looking at it preliminary? Previously, on this committee, we were looking at and comparing, looking at the scores, and this project in particular didn't score, way at the top. How has that scoring changes with the adoption of the new mechanism? Anything?
Well, when the original application came in, there was no scoring criteria.
Right.
Then the bond committee looked at the original draft of the scoring criteria and gave suggestions, and we reworked that. And one of the goals behind the scoring criteria was to advance housing production strategy goals as well, hence the accessible units piece. And Kelly's brought it up there. And so the Casa Loma project originally didn't score so well didn't score so well, but it didn't meet the mark because of its location primarily, and because the phase 2 units were not included. But when you do include the phase 2 units, and when you do include the given points for accessibility, then we finally get up to the minimum score. So it is at the minimum. So it's not like Gussie Bell, which scored quite well. A lot of Gussie Bell's scoring came because of its location. It's near the core network and all those pieces, whereas this is not. Did I answer that question? Or did
Yeah, because, it's great that it meets the high demand we have for the family-oriented affordable housing. However, I'm still worried about the other points, the transit access, parks, schools, all the other stuff, the proximity that we don't have built in there yet. So that is a kind of a concern of mine. On the, let's see, this thing was for today. On the funding request, it said that the increase was basically for off-site development costs. Weren't there other increases in costs that were the on-site ones? I mean, I'm trying to understand why.
I think what the engineer did here, ma'am, was to say that of the piece that is the off-site, they had an original estimate for what that was going to cost, and then that same piece is now $1.368 million more. So I'm going to guess, just based upon this, that the rest of it also had an increase in cost as well. But they didn't include that because it wasn't specific to this request.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering how those were covered, kind of thinking about other funds and what you were asking about. Because I'm assuming there were increases in the other costs as well, and maybe that's where the contingency went. Okay, thanks. I think that's all my questions right now.
Could I have just a clarification? As a reminder, going back to how these funds can be used, so they're specific for capital construction. They're specific for, the offsite improvement piece comes because we want it to remain in public ownership. And then, of course, this is just an engineered estimate that we're talking about. The full amount's not gonna be funded if the costs don't actually meet that full amount. And so
That's good.
if it came in lower, the full amount wouldn't be awarded. I just wanted to clarify that, we're not looking at, writing a full check for the full amount and handing over, we have some obligation insurances for the appropriate things, and certifying those costs.
And thanks, Josh. And Beth, to be clear, there will be a person on site in this spot as well as with the facility that I.
Oh, right, yes, we've already executed a memorandum of understanding with Catholic Community Services to provide a full-time community health worker on site.
Can you, for this sake of today, can you just tell us what that person does? What do they do?
How long do you have?
Yeah, right. Just a brief.
So,
point.
so with their certification, they're able to do the more intensive case management for higher needs households. So it's quite a range. So it goes anywhere from that to planning community events for the residents. Also bringing in community partners. There's so many things. I brought a list. I just mentioned a few things. So we have an on-site non-food pantry, so sundries, but it's household items with a purchase with a food stamp card, diapers, bathroom products, pet food, things like that residents are able to access. So the person at Cornerstone is she runs that and organizes that, works with partners to bring in donations for that, and then we fill it in with some of our funds from the actual apartment budget as needed. We have the dental van comes regularly. We're working with Capital Dental. We have a health room that we built there. We're working with Capital Dental to put a dental chair in there for preventative dental care. And in the meantime, the dental van just comes regularly. We have several resource events. We're getting ready for our back to school event right now, which is probably the biggest one. And we provide backpacks, school supplies, back to school haircuts from nice salons, and tons of resources. It's hard to cover it all.
So what they might not have access to comes directly to them.
Yes, we try to have everything on site, and then we're constantly having partners approaching us too, because it's helpful for them because there's a spot where they can reach a lot of people. So it's really symbiotic relationship. And we remove those barriers by having everything on site. We have vaccination clinics. We have tax assistance during tax season. We just had 5 of our residents graduated with their GEDs in partnership with Shemeketa just this spring.
What about counseling?
We have a transportation fund from the state that so people can come in and apply for assistance for funding for, like, if they need a radiator or need new tires or something like that. We're very intentional, with what we're doing here. It's, survival is great, but our goal is for our community to thrive.
And I didn't hear you mention counseling or other services like that offered too.
That is more of an access, so our community health worker will be able to connect folks
Yeah.
to those types of services. So, and it's also research-based. We work off of the 5 family protective factors. I don't know if I'm saying the words in order. And so it's all research-based, and then for those higher needs households, they do assessments with our community health worker to see what is the best plan for their household. We do a lot at Cornerstone, and our turnover is very low. Our wait list is over 600. We have healthy reserves. We've kept the place just beautiful. When inspectors come, they want to share our property with other people. As an example, when some federal person came in to tour awesome places in Salem, we were one of the sites that the group wanted to show them, and we did a tour. I really do, you are all invited to come see Cornerstone, because it's amazing to see how it is in year 8. We're going for 8 years and it's still a beautiful property, high quality, great amenities. I'm very intentional with that as well. In-unit washers and dryers, pets are allowed. We have a splash pad for the kids in the central area. We have a community garden, granite countertops, so just really intentional about making this is a home, and just because it's low income, we're not cutting any corners, it needs to be a good quality, long lasting property.
Did you have something else?
I did, thank you very much. Because one of the things that you're bringing forward is adding the additional accessory units. I'm curious, with its distance, is there going to be a struggle with mass transit availability? And those accessory units are fitting within this request, but I'm curious as to the expectations of it meeting the needs.
Well, there is, I know we have some residents at Cornerstone that utilize the Chariots, the smaller
The
buses.
micro, except I don't know, do
Yeah,
they have the
folks
micro
that-
units going, or just smaller buses?
Folks that have mobility issues.
That's the cherry lift program.
The
Okay.
Cherry Lift program. Also, one thing that we would like to not cut from the budget, if we don't have a huge perm loan, is a shuttle for our residents, and shuttle service until the rest of the neighborhood, catches up with us.
Well, it's gonna be a while before Chariots gets that southern, transit center in, and then how, what, I don't know what the anticipated routes are. It just is another piece that it's like, it's not quite fitting yet. Those are the things.
Yeah, they
that-
might realize the necessity of like a Chariot Uber.
Well, they're talking about having those micro, bus service, which is smaller buses, more like a shuttle.
Great idea.
But I don't know how soon they'll be
Yeah.
able to get that going.
Also, I would hate to see any money go to interest on a permanent loan. That's just money down the drain, personally. If it doesn't
Yeah.
have to happen.
It would be better if we could put it back into our community year after year.
Anyone have any more questions?
Real quick on the phase 2 piece, I want you to know that our tax credit investor wants to do it. So they're on board to do the second phase.
Right. That's good news too.
And I thank you again, Josh, for informing us that it would meet the needs that are given and not necessarily the maximum amount. So that's helpful. Is there some?
Did you mean by that? Phrase that again.
Well, Josh was saying that,
If they don't need all the money.
if they don't need all of it.
Oh,
it's-
yes.
And
Yeah,
so
that
that's
part.
helpful because what would be nice is if they don't need all of it, because I know we're gonna have competition. I'm struggling with this vote. I will just honestly say I'm really struggling with this vote because we don't know what other developers may need. And it feels like what we're being asked is to push this forward because you're now meeting some of the criteria with future plans. So I'm struggling and I honestly don't know. I'm just,
If there were other projects in the pipeline, chomping at the bit, I would struggle, but this feels like we can get a whole lot more people housed and served sooner than later. And we can do it without draining funding that can be poured into services. So I'm not struggling with it so much, because we're here and it's ready to roll, so. That's my opinion.
Well, I'm struggling with it because of the intent of the voters. My impression is, I feel that in getting 44% of the funds basically to one project, I'm not sure that was really the intent originally. I'm not saying that I wouldn't feel differently in a few months, but we just adopted the new criteria, et cetera, and I'm really struggling with this as well. For the same reasons that you said. However, we still have how many years till
33?
Do we
Is it
really
really
want to
gonna-
spend almost 50% of it right now?
Does the money grow?
It does grow a little bit, yes.
And there's no telling what might be coming because the drive for housing is so great.
I want to say, I'm optimistic that we're gonna get more good stuff coming in. There's a lot of initiative at the state level to make
Yes, there
housing
is.
more of a priority. Last year, the council adopted the housing production strategy, so I tend to be optimistic.
Mhm.
One of the other things that I struggle with, in addition to the kind of the opportunity costs of committing the money now, is if you look at the development efficiency rating here, this is already, as we originally funded, a very expensive level of funding that we're providing for. And this commits even more of our very limited funding. So I'm to the cautious, let's be optimistic about delivering more in the future. I know that's tough for what we think is a very good project now.
exactly, it is a
But-
good project.
Yeah, it's
I understand.
how do we deliver as many units for the community as we can over the term of this fund.
I would say my temperature is like I'm kind of in the middle. These types of projects take so long. The development cycle is so long. And we think 6 years more of getting together or whatever it is. Is it 6 years, 5 years, whatever it is a lot of time, but it's not really in a development cycle. It is, but it isn't. And yes, I would be optimistic that things would be coming down the pipe. But the fact that we don't really see anything now is instructive to me. And yes, the funds could grow a bit, but they're also, I would ask, what will be the net, right?
Yeah.
At current inflationary rates and the escalation of construction prices, do you really end up having more by sitting on it? I don't think that you do. And so I'm inclined to say, yeah, this is what's in front of us. This is a good use of the money now. That's kind of where I lean now.
How many units?
183.
It's 183 households.
Mhm. So, yeah, and we have the 600 wait list right now, so pretty eager to get folks housed.
A side note, we don't have to have the discussion here or now,
Count.
is why did it take so long to get the criteria to the council for a vote? So we had this discussion,
Yeah,
Right.
it takes a while.
we had this discussion,
Process.
we approved that in 2024, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I can speak to that, and some of it's just staff priorities, and at the time, this was just in the last couple weeks this came up, there hasn't been a lot of interest or need, so it was just the next available council meeting that fit, along with staff demands, so. 100% on us, there's no intention.
Well, and it's one of those things where it's like, I remember having the conversation, but then you kind of, so many things come and go off this table. We forget that we even had it, and it's like, never followed up with like, okay, where are we at?
But clearly someone was watching it.
Yeah, someone was watching it, yeah.
So we can make a motion to take it to council? Is that the-
Yeah, I recommend the award to council.
To recommend awarding it to the council.
Yes.
And the criteria
And
exception.
waiving to include phase 2 as
Part of the criteria.
part of the score.
Does it, you mean sending this decision basically to council?
So how this has been treated in the past is the bond oversight committee is kind of the gatekeeper, right? So if you were to say no today, we wouldn't take anything to the city council unless they appeal directly there somehow. We've done that we've had another application where this committee said no, and we didn't take it anywhere. If this committee wants to recommend it to move forward, we would move it forward to the city council.
That changes my opinion a bit, because what I really want is some community input on this decision now that we've accepted the criteria, and this is an additional use of those funds that they voted for.
Yes,
so
and
that
we have
makes a
other
difference.
wards represented by other councilors who would be able to have input at the council level.
I'm curious that if this is voted no today, does that prohibit them from coming back to ask again?
For the
Yeah.
same project.
Yes.
I don't think it would prohibit them from coming back, but unless something changed, I think it would be challenging to come back with the exact same application with the same score.
It'll be more expensive.
Yeah.
It'll be more expensive.
Well, can I just make one more comment? I'm a little concerned about approving the waiver and setting that precedent, to be honest with you. For other projects to be able to do that as well. I mean, it kind of negates a little portion of the scoring component of it, which is really crucial.
I have a lot of the same concern, and I'm worried about the precedent of, we already approved $3 million for this project. But does it encourage people to come in and ask again for fund money for projects whenever there's a financial difficulty? It's just, I feel like it was a good deal or a reasonable commitment. We were talking 3 million. Now that we're 50% more than that, it's a pretty significant cost to what else we could do with it.
I remember the conversation we had at the time. Even then, I know that it was a challenging struggle for us.
I'm okay recommending it to council and let council make that decision. Because, well, no, I feel like there's enough merit, right, that you could justify. I mean, we're close here, right? We're all kind of saying, well, I'm kind of torn. So there's enough merit to justify voting one way or the other. Some great arguments on both sides, I think. And so that's why I'm saying.
So would that
No,
come as a
sorry.
public hearing and then we'd have public input, or would it just come as an information report?
It would be an extra,
It would be an action item for a vote.
it would automatically trigger.
Are you making a
Okay,
motion?
did he make a motion?
Yeah, right.
Yes,
Can I second the motion?
Of course.
okay, I move that we recommend the request for up to 1.368762 million. In additional funding for the project. And what was the second piece?
And waiving the
And waiving,
waiving the need to limit it to phase 1 to count for phase 2 production.
did you get that? for council vote and committee.
And can we have a little discussion on that? As far as wave seems like a strange word. It seems more like inclusion to me of a phase two of a project. But are there other projects currently that could come back and ask for that inclusion?
This is the only one
Only one.
this is the only one that's come forward and has funds out of this bond for it, so.
Yeah, I mean, there was another one for the green light development, but that was, we fronted the money and got paid back most of it minus that conservation area. So this is the only one in that position.
So is it really,
Oh, excuse
go
me.
ahead.
We've always planned to do the phase two. Just want to be clear about that with everyone. And then also, these offsites, I had mentioned, when we do the phase two, the offsite costs will be absorbed. So into the pro forma for the second phase. So in essence, the offsite improvements will be contributing to the phase two as well.
Any other discussion?
I was gonna say, I definitely think this is a decision for the council. It's a big decision to make. As a possible friend, I don't know if we have a motion or if you just made it, but.
No, I did. I
He
made
did
it.
it.
Okay.
Mayor's White seconded it.
Okay. The thing I'd be curious about is an alternative to the full amount. There was something I want to say was on the order of $260,000 to $300,000. That was the increment of the additional cost of the infrastructure improvements. Seems to me that should be an alternative that the council considers. I mean, not just
Doug,
yes or no.
Where did you get that?
I apologize. I thought I dug through the notes at some point.
Go ahead, please.
Not as a member, but as a person with information about the project. So the nearly 300,000 addition is related to a pipe size increase that was identified in the master planning process after original design. And so that's a alternative that the city can, it wasn't originally designed and conditioned and approved that way, but it would be a benefit to the city in the long run if while the pipe's being installed, we do that at size now. I did also, if I can, want to mention that the offsite improvements are also system development charge eligible. So that shouldn't, I'm making a neutral statement, but just I want the committee members to be aware that there could be a request to city to reimburse the offsite improvements through system development charges, which would, reduce the availability of system development charges we have for other development, non-affordable housing related projects as well. So there are a couple different sources of city funding or bond money that we would be looking at.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Would that be something that could be presented to the council if this is brought to the council, so that we might be able to potentially award less? I mean, is that something that the motion could be amended to?
My motion was up to. If Kelly got it right, it was up to.
I mean, we could certainly include the information. I don't think the motion needs to be adjusted.
Okay.
Brian, do you want to speak to it?
I don't think so either. I mean, these other SDC potential reimbursements have to be approved by council also. So
Okay.
they're not on a list right now, so we have to get them added to the SDC reimbursement list.
You couldn't actually vote for it if it was in the motion.
Got it. Okay, because just trying to find a way to feel good about it.
Lots of pieces.
Yeah,
But if it was awarded, this amount would be reduced because the cost would go down and would be covered by the
right.
SDC.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of sending this to council?
Aye.
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 Okay.
We're gonna make the group decide.
That's not a bad thing. We get the big bucks for such a reason.
Give me lots of good stuff to talk about.
Thank you so much, you guys, for being here.
Great discussion.
And I do want to extend an invitation. Maybe I can, I don't know who to send it to, but, if a group would like, or any members of the group would like to come and see Cornerstone or work at Cornerstone, really be happy to.
I think that would be helpful. Thank you for that offer, and some may, it has nothing to do, I think it's a wonderful project. It's trying to figure out well to have.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe extend the invitation to council and CC Family Partner.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Robin, thanks for your input.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful.
All right, that's great. We are moving on to new items, and we have none. Aha. Management update information item for the Gilchrist Street. Whoa.
Well, thank you.
It just feels calmer to me for some reason.
No,
Have a map, there we go, good.
So, just a quick recap of phase one. We started construction toward the end of 2023. It continued through 2024. The yellow represents that we had limited duration closures for phase one. We first closed it the north-south direction, and then we closed it, we opened that up, and then we closed it in the east-west direction for the culvert replacement. And then from that experience, we learned that a lot of folks wanted to go westbound through Social Security and the Veterans Affairs. So on phase two, the Christmas colors there with the green and red. So we required the contractor to maintain a westbound lane. We closed it and to the eastbound to allow room for the contractor to work.
And really made people mad.
And so that work was 2025. And then on 25th Street, we reduced it to one lane in each direction. And so again, we heard comments, especially from the restaurant community, about access. So we worked to do what we could to provide access. And really the westbound was lane being open was one of the first time we've ever tried something like that. So that was one of our ways to try to help. On phase three, which is from 12th Street to just east of 22nd, all of phase three, we had to divide it up into kind of three sub phases due to the railroad coordination. On the part between 16th and 22nd, we are proposing closing that area between or until basically July 1st. And the reasons for that are
From when to?
From when to when?
When?
it would be approximately April.
April, so,
March, April.
so 3 months, not 9 months.
Part of the reasons for that is on July 1st, there's emergency culvert repair to the north on 16th. That's just off the map. That work, DQ allows it to start in more work July 1st. So we want to make sure that we have our improvements done prior to that, and then we can restore. It won't be fully done, but enough to restore two-way traffic on that stretch. And it won't be fully closed. It'll be open to local access. So we'll have specific signs that say Veterans Affairs and Social Security and Truck Pros. Truck Pros is the building sort of to the right, just immediately west of 22nd. It's a smaller building. And then of course, Social Security and VA is that larger building closer to the railroad tracks. Yeah, that's Social Security. We spoke with, so the Wallings family owns those three larger properties. Actually, there's 4 there. And so we met on site with them, talked through some of the things the challenges we had, and they were supportive of it. One of the things that will happen in this phase is we will have full access to their driveway across from 16th at all times, so that will be unfettered access. In addition, they have a back driveway off of 22nd. They were open to, once we have a contractor on board, having a conversation between the contractor and them about access off 22nd. We can't commit to that. That's an agreement that have to be reached once we have a contractor on board. But they mentioned that they were open to that. We also met with Nate Levin, who owns the property to the east of 22nd. There's multiple properties there, and there's multiple businesses in there. Originally, we were going to have a more lengthy detour, but after speaking with him, we are having a shorter detour that will come up 22nd. And I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. The limited closure goes just east of 19th, not 22nd. And part of the reason for moving right there where your cursor is, having that where the closure starts, is that way the businesses it'll be more obvious that it's open. So there'll be two-way access to the right of your cursor. There'll be two-way access all the time. It's already, because it's been constructed already and there's a driveway there. So that was one of the things that Nate asked for, which we said, yeah, we can accommodate traffic to that point. East of that. We also spoke on the north side of the road. There's Honey Bucket closer to 16th. So their only request was we have our trucks get out at 6 a.m. We want to make sure we got access for our trucks and they don't come back for approximately 12 hours. So if you can accommodate that, we're good with it. They don't have public facing their businesses.
Thank goodness.
So then there's also a vacant property that's for rent to the east of that. So we reached out to the property management group, asked them if they had any pending leases coming up or anything like that. And the response back was they have nothing pending and they support whatever. Resolve that question. So yeah, we will have access in that area in the yellow, but it will be local access only, and we'll have blue signs that specifically say Veterans Affairs, Social Security, and truck roads.
And I think I could kick this off, but one of the things I wanted to share with the committee was what phase 3 looks like. With phase 1 with phase 2. And so the team is working on phase 3, and it's broken up into some of those sub phases that mentioned, but the team is looking at it and trying to figure out how do we provide access, what's the best way to do this. And to provide access, it stretches the length of the project out over a much longer period of time. And sometimes it's better to just close it for a shorter period of time if you can work it out with property owners. And so as they were weighing that, they had a lot of meetings with property owners and they came to me and like the people prefer to just have it closed for a shorter period of time than have it extended, trying to maneuver all the traffic through the construction zone. And so, because we had the first couple of phases completed and we're getting ready to start this phase 3, which will be next year, and they're finalizing the plans and getting ready to get contractor bids. We thought it'd be a good idea just to bring it in and just share an update on, this is a big meaty project. There's a lot of bond funds that are committed to it. And this is what it's going to look like going forward so that everyone could kind of get a feel for some of the decisions we're making and hopefully agree that we're heading in the right direction. So anyways, that's kind of the basis of it. So Will's talking about the details of all the people he's talked to and how he's kind of worked this out. But that's kind of the thought of it. Why this is here before you today, should provide an update. Because when it is closed, it's a huge inconvenience to people. And they've dealt with it for a couple of years now. And we're in the home stretch, but there's still a couple big more inconveniences.
Phase 3 includes the restaurants like Black Sheep and Sandy M and.
That's correct. Yeah, the driveway, the easterly driveway is already constructed, so that will be two-way traffic will be maintained to the east of that.
So customers can get into those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they
And
will
are
also have access from 19th to
Oh, okay.
south. North of 19th.
And you mentioned the blue signs for Veterans Affairs and the trucking spot. Are there is there signage for restaurants open?
Yeah, yes, we have businesses and restaurants open. We talked about having all of those individual businesses in the Mingo Press Business Park, which is the one that Nate Levan owns to the east of 19th. But when we met with him out there, he felt that that sign would just have to be
Too big.
yeah, massive. And so then that's what he said, please make this intersection fully open. Make sure you have two-way traffic to the west as far as you can into that east driveway near Black Sheep. So it looks open, because one of the things we heard from the restaurant community was even just the presence of barrels, cones, that kind of stuff, it's enough to deter. So that was part of the feedback that we got, which we want to try to incorporate. It's all the way open. It might say, at the intersection, it might say closed ahead, but then otherwise it's fully open. No barrels, no nothing until you get to that driveway, just past that.
Yeah, all businesses are open.
Maybe paint the barrels a different color.
Yeah.
Less drama. Oh, yeah, right?
I have a question, so this is probably for Brian. First of all, phase 1 and 2, it looks great.
great.
I spent years working down there, so driving down there now is great. The question is, we haven't had any like major rain events, I don't think, since they've both been completed, but how has those 2 completed phases performed? Do we have any sense if they're performing the way that we were hoping they would in terms of stormwater, in terms of pedestrian flow, traffic flow? What can we?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything negative so far, so normally I'll know if there's a stormwater flood.
Yeah.
In fact, last night when I.
All right, well, that's what made me think of that. That's what made me think of that. By the way.
What's up? You did have a large storm event this last December.
Yes.
And Will, you would probably know better than anyone if there was any issues out there.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything. The closest place we were watching was sort of by the Irings area, because that's one of the larger basins, drainage areas. But it did well. It was a pretty intense but relatively short duration, one of the storm events there, and spread into the outside the gutter pan, a little bit into the asphalt, but it was pretty
Not something that had to be coned off and.
correct. Yeah.
I think we did see some issues in the phase 3A and 3B area. We've got more culvert replacements as part of this upcoming work that should hopefully remedy that as well. So,
Well,
overall, yeah, like Frank said,
so
no news is usually good news.
And phase 3 is where I recall all of
That's what it
bidding, like,
is.
issues and all of everything.
yes, I was just gonna make the statement that I remember, when the costs were coming in and many community members feeling like, no, just leave it the way it is. We don't need to invest in it. And yet this investment has proven to be really quite helpful for the businesses around here, that even though that's impacted them during the process, it will benefit them so much as this project is completed. And I will have to say, I know I'm waiting. I mean, I go down occasionally, but rarely still, because of how often, you don't quite know how far you're gonna get. But it is gorgeous to be there when you are there. And
Nice to walk.
it's
It is.
really, just like, this is a project that did require this kind of investment, and I'm glad that it's being done.
Sometimes until the last cone is gone.
Yeah,
They won't
that's
celebrate.
exactly right.
But I have figured out a really nice way to the airport around past the Walmart, so I don't have to come through there and get in.
It makes us, find other ways.
Yep.
Anyway, so, well, just updating us, I know that this phase 3 is gonna be,
Sure. So the 3A is 2027, and then phase 3B will be 2028, probably drift into 29, just because of the railroad coordination. We have to replace a culvert there on the west fork of Pringle Creek, and then when we're done with that, we have to allow time for the rail to get in there to do their work.
I don't want you to go into detail, but what is the rail communication? You've already started that communication, I assume.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
know it's coming.
Yeah.
It's just conversation after.
Yeah. It's when they're they're nice to talk to. It just, sometimes it takes a while, some of the back and forth. And we are getting close, so right now, the estimate is that in August, we'll receive a true, yes, you are go to move forward.
Like a stamp.
So there's a few things to work through on that, but that'll be the first initial, you're good to go. And then we will work to finalize things, and then February of 2027 will be the final sign seal from them and agreement.
Okay. Which railroad?
You guys are there.
Thank you. Nice work. And Manila Fiesta's out on 99 now.
Yeah.
Good there. No parking.
Yeah, that's now replaced.
Yep. All right, gosh, thank you. Anything else on this topic? Then we are moving on to Aaron Kimsey on the stormwater.
Yeah, thank you. I actually brought Ben Haney along, because he's an integral part of this potential addition to the civic project. And so I'll let him talk about the program, but essentially why I'm here to talk about it is there was a stormwater facility identified that would be really that could be beneficial to meet some program requirements. And because our project is here and we're in construction and we have contractor, there's some efficiencies and some timing that could potentially be a benefit to both projects. So go ahead and go to the next slide and I'll let Ben talk about the program.
Could I just introduction?
Yeah.
So when staff were talking about this, it was the same time we've been talking about Peace Plaza. And we know we have limited funding for Peace Plaza, but it's been some concepts put together. One of the things we wanted to do is make sure whatever we do, can we have it within unison with what we want Peace Plaza to be in the future. And so they actually used the same landscape architect from the Civic Center work and come up with a proposal that would actually be funded by the utility for a component for treating stormwater infrastructure for stormwater treatment. But then it could also help start the vision of what landscaping could look like. I just wanted to share that, and Ben we'll get into the program and why we have to do things and what this means look like. But I wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Just a little bit on what we're talking about. The concept is to build a stormwater quality swale and planter along Commercial Street, along the east side of Commercial Street near the Civic Center and Peace Plaza area. And the way this concept came about, this has actually been something staff had identified several years ago as a potential opportunity. So my involvement in this is I help Public Works administer what we call our stormwater retrofit program. And this is a program required of the city by DEQ as part of our stormwater permitting to the Clean Water Act. So our MS4 through in the weeds on the stormwater permitting world requires the city to have a stormwater retrofit program. And what that means is that, obviously in newer areas where we have current stormwater design standards, if a development happens as a previous area, there's requirements to add features to provide water quality and flow control to that stormwater before it's discharged into the creek. For most of the city's history, there wasn't that requirement. So obviously most of the city is built, stormwater runs off the road, goes into the creek. And so the retrofit program is intended to go back into those areas that were previously developed and add facilities to provide water quality and maybe some flow control to stormwater before it's discharged. And so as part of that, the city Public Works has put together a retrofit program. And what we do is we look for opportunities to do these retrofit projects in areas. Existing infrastructure. And, there's a lot of different opportunities across the city. So we take those and we rank those and prioritize those. And the factors we rank those by are, the benefit we feel like this would make it. For example, commercial street along Civic Center is a major commercial arterial. So you can imagine, the stormwater may be of a lower, more degraded coming off that street than it might be in a residential street somewhere in the outskirts of town. So we look at that and say, oh, that's helps this rank higher. The other thing is, where's the stormwater being discharged into? In this case, it's discharging right into Pringle Creek, which is a central salmon habitat. And then also we look at kind of the cost and opportunities for economy and when we construct these, or their ability to maintain them. And in this case, this concept was identified as a pretty high priority, also because as the Civic Center project came along, we felt like there's an opportunity there to maybe package that construction as part of the larger Civic Center project. Will have a lot of economy of scale savings on the construction. And then Brian hit on this last one, but I just want to make clear too that the retrofit program is an ongoing funded program within the CIP, and it's funded through utility rates. So what the proposed swell on Civic Center is not proposing using any bond funding. It would be funded separately, existing funding within the retrofit program, which is utility funding.
Any questions on that? So I'll step in here. I just wanted to show this slide as a reminder. I shared it in the past as far as kind of the vision that we have for Peace Plaza improvements. As you all know, we don't have the funding to be able to do what's pictured on the screen. I think what's shown here is probably about a $2.5 million project, unfortunately. And previous Bond Oversight Committee members agreed or said that we would spend $100,000 of money that's trying to do something. So we earmarked $100,000 to do Peace Plaza improvements. And so just as a reminder, what we're going to do for that $100,000 is make the improvements on the northeast corner, which is the Peace Wall. You can point to it. Or you want to give me the mouse?
Yes, please. Yes, please. That's great.
So we're proposing to do this corner up here. So this is the Peace Wall. It was added to Peace Plaza in the 90s, maybe late 90s. It could be sooner than I had that date. No, it's
okay. We can blame the 90s for a lot of things.
So we're gonna complete this improvement, which is like 4 or 5 trees, some paving, some decorative pavers, and then the other part that we're gonna do is open up this green space here with these 4 trees, and then construct this pathway with some pavers as well. So what that does is it gets us a glimpse of what we want to do in the future, and then also we wanted to make sure that we didn't do improvements that would have to be redone in the future. So this allows us the opportunity to still come in. We'll need construction access if and when we're able to secure more funding. So we would be able to come in still here and do all of this improvement and kind of get out of here. So I wanted to share that because that's where we're headed, and then show you some pictures on what Brian wanted to really show is how this swell could potentially fit in with this Peace Plaza improvement. So the upper right corner is a rendering of what that swale could look like after it's designed. And then the left-hand corner or the bottom left is existing. So I just wanted to remind everybody like what it looks like today. And actually it worked out that the renderings were almost the exact same vantage point.
Can I jump in with a couple of questions?
Yes.
So when you say swale, I assume we're gonna be excavating, is that right? So everything we see on the lower left is gonna go away and be replaced?
Yeah, this grassy strip here is gonna be excavated to create essentially a ditch.
Okay,
And then it's an enhanced ditch because it has plantings.
Yep. So the sidewalk connection.
Ditch plus.
You can call them bio.
I like the
The
no
other question I
lines
want to
on.
ask is about the sidewalk connection. I see green space there. Is that gonna be planted? What's the, compared to the?
Oh, that's
basically a
actually-
curb-tight sidewalk?
Yeah, no, that's a mistake in the rendering. It'll look like this. So, well, actually, this grassy, I think this grass, we're paying back further on the
Okay.
rendering. So the grass is showing up here.
All right,
In real
just a
life.
different perspective.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like it's just further down.
Yeah.
Some more of the building.
So this will remain curb as it is today, and then the walk path will be up here.
And are we doing anything with the sidewalks?
No. And we are doing some site improvement sidewalks at Civic. I don't have that picture. But we are specifically this walkway here is we're not doing anything to with currently. Let me go back though to
Some panels to replace.
Well, that's what I want. That's kind of what I want.
this walkway here is all new. And here is all new, but you can see where it's tying into the existing. So this will be improved and widened to create a larger walking surface.
And that's the Liberty side.
Commercial.
Oh, that's commercial. Oh, okay, I was
Flipped
transposed.
around, yeah.
Point on that map where the storm.
So the swale would go right here.
Got it, okay.
So I just have more renderings. Here we go. This is a viewpoint. These are both renderings. It's not actual footage. Just looking kind of giving you a perspective of how the swell would tie into this, what we're showing here is the finished, the 100% Peace Plaza improvements. And then this is just another vantage point looking from commercial to the east that shows how this swell would be incorporated and how that would look in relation to Peace Plaza. Then I have one more rendering. Now we do have an existing photo here on the bottom left. And then the top right is the rendering there. So kind of gives you, there's already, as you can see, obviously there's already landscape material here. So we'll need to, the plantings in this swale area are mostly going to be low, more quality type plantings. They're showing trees. I don't think we're going to do that.
I was wondering how big they would get if they're.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm concerned about is if you continue down this, if you've driven on this path before this, here we go, here, I guess it doesn't really show up, but if you drive through here, you end up merging with commercial and you can have to look back to see traffic and I want to make sure you don't have any conflicts. So, again, renderings are artistic interpretation, so.
It'd be helpful if you're not proposing trees, not to show trees.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Are we gonna have lanes on the road?
We're thinking about just taking the lanes off.
I think so.
Yeah.
Safety little money.
I think so.
Bumper car feel.
Yeah.
I think it would cost a lot more.
But I will sure, I don't want to give up on trees yet because I think that we've had that for a whole.
Sense of closure.
Yeah.
The only concern is just the visual conflicts. So if we can incorporate them and not be an issue, then.
Palm trees.
Palm trees.
Ooh. Changing into a zone 9, from what I understand, so palm trees probably are not out of the picture.
That's all we have to share. So,
Yeah, I think we're just looking for a thumbs up. I mean, the Peace Plaza has been a sensitive topic for the
Yes.
whole Civic Center remodel and before we wanted to propose and get out.
I don't know if it's possible, but just using the whole stormwater runoff, all the things as an educational tool in that space, we talked about that a little bit, Josh. That so that people can see this is purposeful and deliberate, and we can learn from it. This is what's happening, even placards that say.
Isn't that part of the?
Yeah, I didn't mention it, but that is another reason this site was prioritized highly is that, where we have maybe a public education opportunity or just a higher visibility of these features. Is one factor. That and this one was particularly.
I like that a lot.
Next to the library.
I heard about it at a LOC meeting, in Lapine meeting, but Sisters is building a fire protection area around their city hall to show how you do it at home, so you're not at risk of wildfire. So I just think something like this would be really cool for the community to see.
If I can piggyback on top of the signing, when we tear out the existing vegetation, I would encourage you to have a sign saying
Coming
something
soon.
about what we're putting in. So, because otherwise people.
Your utility.
It's very
dollars are
visible.
Working.
I don't know if I'd say
We're
that.
cleaning the water before it goes into the stream.
Yeah.
Something simple.
Don't talk about utility dollars, because that would be like, look what they're doing now. Why they just want to charge bond dollars.
I think the goal would be to maintain as much of this landscaping that already is there. And that we would be confined to just the grassy area for this well.
Okay.
The rendering looks like the whole thing is getting redone, but they couldn't really match existing versus.
Oh, you're not taking out.
Yeah.
Well, I think we haven't got to the design yet. I just want to be
Yeah,
careful about that
You're
because
gonna have to
it could
dig out
be-
a lot of that
It
earth.
could be narrowed up.
Hmm.
Like probably this
When it's
row.
done, we'll bring a picture back.
yeah.
We'll compare it to the rendering and so close we got.
Yeah, I know you're not asking for bond,
No.
no, it's gonna be on the SIP. What's the cost?
It's about 350,000 for design and construction.
That's not.
And what's the process for getting for that? For adding that into the SIP and approval process for that?
It's already there.
Or it's already.
It's already
Okay.
there, yeah. So it's-
it's through the program,
Yeah.
yeah, you just plug in, retrofit, that's what,
Right.
okay. Acting the beginning of the
Yeah, right.
presentation to the end of it here.
And I've heard you can get a fire company to do your digging. Just kidding, that was joking.
It's funny.
Too soon.
Anything else on that? Thanks for being here. Enterprise, enterprise resource planning, Earth.
And if I may, just with the time we have, I'll put it on next month's agenda also, we can talk about it a little more in depth. But just so you guys all know, we're on track to go live 2 months from today with time tracking with our new ERP system. And then October 1st for financials. This is both, I would say it's going well, but there's a lot of apprehension. Any kind of change creates that. We have extended a couple times just to make sure we get it right. We feel fairly confident this time that we're gonna make sure we move forward, so October 1st.
Awesome, okay. Anybody have anything else? They've done anything?